This video illustrates various types of state diagrams and tables that you can create in WinA&D. Typically, a state document is part of a larger set of project documents that may include other types of diagrams, dictionary information, and requirements. And you'll typically use the project-related tools at the top of the ribbon to create those project documents, open them, save them, or close them. You can also create an individual state document by clicking the New Document button and choosing State Model. When it first opens up, you'll see a diagram parameters where you can name the first diagram, and we're just going to call it Diagram 1 here, and we can define how many horizontal and vertical pages we want in this diagram. There's two types of windows that are presented with a state document. One of them is a table window where you can create one or more tables within the state document. For each table, you'll see its title at the left, and you can double click and bring up the table parameters and give it a new title. You can also define other information about that table, including the type of table it is, and here's some of the different types. You can also add additional tables to this document. So if we click the plus sign here, we're creating another table. Let's create table 2 now. And you can define other properties of that table, including the type of table you want to create. The same thing is true for a diagram document. You'll start with a single diagram within this document, and we can create diagrams from a palette of tools at the left, and most state diagrams will consist of two types of objects. We have nodes, where we can click the state tool, click on the diagram, and enter a name. You'll also have transitions, where you'll select a transition tool, click on one node and then another. And you can name the transition as well if you'd like. So that's the basic drawing method of creating virtually any kind of state diagram that you'd want to create. The document defaults dialog shows all the different examples of state diagrams. So when you select one of these types of diagrams, then it will customize the behavior of the tool to draw that type of diagram. Let's look at a couple examples of state diagrams and tables. We're going to open up a project, and let's stack these windows. Within this project, we see lots of different kinds of documents that are used for the project, including a data flow diagram. It starts with a context diagram representing our entire system, which is a communication frame analyzer collecting information that's going down a data highway. And we have information coming in to the system and information going out of the system. If we expand this bubble, we'll see an example where, in addition to data flows back and forth between the different processes, we also have control flows. In this type of diagram, we can integrate our data flow diagram with different a state table or a diagram. So for example, we have some control flows coming into a process activation table. And we also have some control flows going into a state diagram. Let's take a look at both of those now. First, we'll look at this process activation table where we have different control flows coming from these processes, and that will control which processes are currently active based on the on or off state of these control flows. So if we look at this table, here's our process activation table. It can consist of inputs and potentially outputs. And inputs would be control flows flowing into the table. And here's the name of these different control flows and what their states are. And then based on this table, we'll determine whether or not these various named processes, and these are the bubbles on that diagram, whether they're turned on or off, 0 or 1. And there could also be some outgoing control flows that could be controlled by the incoming, the state of the incoming controls in this table as well. Now let's go back and we're going to look at this state diagram here where we have a couple of control flows coming in and one coming out. And let's look at how that is described within a diagram. So if we go to that diagram, we see our various states within the this environment. We have two different states. We have an idle state and an active state. And then we see transitions between those states. And so we can see when a certain command occurs, for example, from this bubble, we saw there was a command coming in, and based on the value of that command, if the command was start scan, that would transition us from the idle state to the active state. If it was stop scan, it would transition us from the active state back to the idle state. Another type of state diagram is a per chart, where we have different lanes like plan, design, develop, and test. And within each lane, we have different tasks and information about those tasks. We also then connect those tasks with transition lines, and we can see the progress of a project as each task is completed. Here's an example of a collection of documents for an object-oriented project. We used a state diagram to create a use case diagram where we identify the system that we're modeling with this dotted line, show the external actors on the system and the various use cases that those actors interact with. Another type of state diagram is an activity diagram where we have various named activities and other types of nodes. You can see there's a variety of different types of nodes that you can have on an activity diagram. And then we're going to connect those nodes with different transition lines. Finally, let's look at a Herald-style state diagram where we have different named nodes and transition lines between those nodes, indicating when various events fire how the system transitions from one state to another. To summarize, a WinA&D project may consist of one or more state documents consisting of diagrams or tables of various types that can be integrated with other types of diagrams, data dictionary, or requirements information in the project.